Johan Moxham. Johan Moxham is our guest. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. And thanks to Johan Moxham. I hope in whatever I share with you publicly, specifically, but even privately, that it is from not only a considered perspective, as I would with everybody, but a respectful one, and a one that would engender a sense of discourse, and in our deliberations that we would appreciate the importance of the service and sacrifice, respecting what our parents and their parents did to put us where we are. As I look at you, I'm encouraged that there are many, hopefully increasingly so, much more visible and active and vocal and honest in our deliberations and our presentations. I see you as not just competent, not just compassionate, not just considerate, but someone who has a sense of confidence, and you say things in a way that asks us to think, but to respond in a respectful way as you put it out there. I must commend your courage, man, and your conviction.
First of all, thank you for the compliments, but truth be told, Sterling, I'm just a regular guy. I know that I'm one of the luckiest people in the world because the Cayman Islands is my home.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Born here, I have a family, we raise them here, and God's willing, I die here and I'm put to rest here. Mm-hmm. This is the only home that I have. It's the only home I want to have. I like traveling, but if you don't protect home base, and if this place doesn't work for Caymanians, what's the point of making it so accessible for everybody else?
Right.
If you look at it statistically, you have a population of about 65,000 people. There's about 24,000 work permits. So you're looking at 40,000 Caymanian people. Of that 40,000 Caymanian people, I would guesstimate by saying there's truly about 25,000 multi-generational Caymanians. We're a welcoming country. Those that have been lucky enough, fortunate enough, that have contributed, that have engaged and integrated, that have secured permanent residency and Caymanian status, they're the luckiest people in the world.
Yeah. But what's interesting, and I say this carefully, but after an extensive sort of insight review and deliberate sort of provoking a thought, many of those same individuals that are here, either aspiring to PR and residency or have achieved it, they have shared, whether they've been here for 30 plus years or they're in their 10th year. Mm-hmm. They've shared what you shared. Not many have done so publicly because of potential repercussions from their own cohorts, but also from the rest of us. And because of them, I've had a renewed respect, appreciation for Cayman. But I've also seen that as Caymanians, we take so much of that for granted. Simple example, you can walk the beach, right? Even when we were in prison before and we couldn't get it, right? I'll never stop beating that horse because it just inflames me, right? But we could walk the beach, rarely in fear for our lives, rarely worrying about being accosted by somebody for something. Now it's changing, but rarely having to worry where you put your foot, not just because of hypodermic needles that wash up on the shore or some droppings from some animal, but even the debris that would be on the beaches, even the remote places. we take that for granted. There are many places that you can't do that, right? As simple as that is.
No, I agree with you. And again, just following up on the point of those individuals and families that have been fortunate enough to acquire Caymanian PR and status, those that have earned it. And if you look at the individuals that have become Caymanian, and you go back to, let's say, during our childhood, from the 80s to those that are acquiring PR now, it's two different caliber of people, you know. Before, when we were children or when we were younger, there was a greater degree of integration, fellowship, community, whereby the place was so small and it probably wasn't as developed as it is today. But with progress, there comes a price. I just feel that what we have here in Cayman is gold.
Yeah.
If you are fortunate enough to get that winning ticket, to get PR and graduate through the process to status, there has to be some measure of sacrifice, and sacrifice not just in monetary gains, but I think from an engagement and integration perspective, you have to understand who you're coming to join, and you have to demonstrate the respect for what you found here. You might not understand it, you might not agree with it, but you have to respect it, because whenever we go anywhere else, we have to respect the laws, customs, cultures, and history of the places that we decide to settle in. And I just think that we're such a polite, positive sort of people. Accommodating, that's a great word. That a lot of that is taken advantage of. And everybody assumes that a Caymanian or a local is lazy, inept, and basically just surviving or advancing because of their bloodline. Now, some of that is real, but in our Caymanian pool, you've got lazy people, you got stupid people, you got people that take advantage, that are incompetent, that are inept, but not everybody that shows up here is an expert in their field. Not everybody here that shows up to get a work permit is, you know, coming to help us and coming to save us. The vast majority are economic migrants, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we have our own history where our people had to go to sea to provide, get jobs, and send money back home. So I don't have a problem with economic migrants. What I don't and what I cannot accept is those that suddenly take the view that we are the problem, because there are too many people that are fortunately, that have been fortunate enough to make Cayman their home, that would prefer that we weren't here with them to share in the spoils. And I'll give you a small example. I don't know of any Caymanian that definitely goes out to walk on the beach to trespass on anybody's property. I don't know of the people that I hang out with, and the vast majority of us have been taught manners, respect, decency, and so on and so forth. So when you're walking or traversing any sort of property and you start getting yelled at as if you're some field slave because you've now crossed over on an imaginary line and you're told to get off of a private beach where you're just walking through, I'm shocked at that, because there's a way that we can have that conversation, but you didn't buy the beach. You bought a condo. And they are lucky. Those ignorant, mean-spirited persons are lucky that Caymanians are so genteel and respectful that it doesn't escalate to something really bad. Because in any other Caribbean country, that's a completely different outcome. And that is the magic of Cayman and Caymanians. We accommodate, we accept, we include, and then we get sand kicked in our face, and we have yet to resort to the mindless violence and ignorance that is commonplace in any other Caribbean island. But yet we aren't respected for turning the other cheek and remaining lawful and respectful. And once you turn your cheek so often, like, I think I'm a fiery character. I speak my truth. I read, I try to understand issues, and I speak the truth as I see it, because no one can stop you from doing that. But there's a generation after you and I that they're not going to be measured and considerate. They're not going to have conversations on a radio or at a dinner party that are, you know, inclusive and open to different perspectives, they're just going to respond in kind to the ignorance, the bigotry, and the discrimination that they face. And then Cayman will become like all of the other countries in the Caribbean that struggle with racial tension and Caymanian or local versus expat sort of things. We are not there yet, but we're on the road. And we have to recognize that respect is a two-way street, and respect begets respect. Whether it be you're an elected official, whether you're a civil servant, whether you're a owner of a business, whether you're a tourist person, whether you're a person of means that has decided Cayman is your home and you decided to invest, we welcome you. We're grateful. Thank you very much for trying to become a part of the community. But your money doesn't matter if you don't demonstrate the requisite level of respect that we give. We call everybody sir, ma'am, good morning, good night, good evening, how you doing? And it's alien to certain people. But you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. You're in the Cayman Islands. So you need to basically catch up with some of our customs and reciprocate that level of goodwill and positivity, because you came and found us here. This is our home. We didn't go find you and bring you here. You came here for a reason. So let it work for everybody. And I think that's how I try to approach life. I'm not really a horrible person, you know. I got zero tolerance for stupidity, for incompetence and corruption, because in Cayman, those things exist. But we are so lucky that we hide that from the general public. But the people are waking up, and the people understand the games that get played. And if we're not careful, we're going to end up like every other country that's in real bad financial and social sort of unrest in their countries. And you can name them. Have you gone to Bermuda recently? Listen, I'm a light-skinned person of color. My mother's Hispanic, right, from Belize. I go to Bermuda, and apparently I'm a Caucasian. First time in my life I've ever been described as a Caucasian person when I'm in Bermuda. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a level of ignorance I'm not really accustomed to. Because when you look at my father and you understand our roots and where we come from, and if anybody knows Rupert Moxham, there was nothing Caucasian about him. He was your Georgetown guy, okay? He was a brother in every sense of the word. So, but I can say that because I know what I am culturally. But in Cayman, that becomes an issue. It becomes an issue that it needn't become, because we're all Caymanians and this is home for us all.
All right. Well, when we come back from this break, I want to continue. And this is why I welcome your participation. And I hope, pray, honestly, it's my heartfelt, sort of call to our listeners. Agree or disagree, but come away with a sense of a respectful response so that we appreciate that, just as you shared, respect begets respect. But safety, also your personal safety, I think is dependent on how you make others feel safe as well. So like the Beach Access says, if you treat someone walking the beach in an insolent, derogatory manner, do you think they're going to respond to you and bow and kowtow, or are they going to say, yo, this is the time of day? So when we come back, maybe we can talk about some of those things. I'm intrigued by your insight and intellect, and let's invite others to share. Please join us after the break.
Subway is giving you flavor around the clock with the new Chicken Squad sandwich options. Try the classic chicken and bacon ranch, the sweet and savory barbecue chicken, or the chicken cordon bleu. 3 new appetizing and delicious sub options that you can also make into a wrap. The Chicken Squad is available at Subway for only a limited time. Subway, giving you something to cluck about.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
If you care about your car's performance and fuel economy, you must fill up at Jose's Escape with the new Pure 93. Experts know that the higher the octane rating, the better your engine will perform. Pure 93 is the highest octane fuel available in Cayman. Protect your car against pre-ignition and engine knocks. Top up your tank now with Pure 93 at Jose's Rubis and enter to win an awesome track bike. But there's more. Jose's offers 2 lateral flow test kits for only $10. The best KN95 masks, 2 for $5. And 10 stylish black surgical masks are only $5. Share the love. Purchase Reflections gift certificates and enter to win the amazing Trek bike.
Workforce Opportunities and Residency Cayman are reminding customers that applications must be completed in full or they will not be accepted. In efforts to improve customer service and processing time, only fully completed applications will be accepted. Customers are responsible for providing the required information for the application to be processed and are encouraged to review the application checklist before submission. For guidance, visit www.worc.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us. And thank you, too, for taking time to listen. I do respect and appreciate that you have other things. And as you participate in the discussion, maybe you'll come away with a sense of consensus. Maybe you'll agree. Maybe you'll say, nope, they're off base. I have a view. Hey, whatever your perspective is, great. Let's ventilate. Let's voice. Let's be respectful. Johan Moxum is our guest. Let me just perhaps take you back to a sec, if I can. You were chatting earlier, and I'll got a bunch of things I want to ask you about. You've been so kind with your time, but you've also been willing to share your considered perspective, right? Speak your truth as you shared. We talk about BJaxes. We had a caller just the other day who said, hey, on the back, this is what is transpiring. I didn't go to the back to verify it. I have no reason to disbelieve him. What he said, he could have been talking about an incident in Bosun Bay or some other part of the Cayman Islands. Government's paved the road. Sorry, there seems to be an issue with it being impeded and access. You have it there. You have one of the hotels some time ago where a fellow who was working at or near the property said, listen, you need to come see what I see. And you go there and there's a nice little wonderful fenced area. And I go, hey, this is awesome. People can come and swim. Boats will respect that there's swimmers here. He said, no, man, you try go into that water and you'll be raced. And I said, raced? He said, no, not challenged to a run, but you're going to be chased off. And I said, man, you're exaggerating. Only to be told by a dozen other people, Caymania, non-Caymania, long-term resident, and visitor. I thought, but that's the water. Right? And
I can't even imagine that, because that's a level of ignorance that So that's a great example.
Yeah, and I mean, for whatever the reason is, if you another example, I don't want to speak at a school, but I have permission to share because it's happened to this couple numerous times. They've been here forever, and sometimes when one of the other half comes, stays a little bit longer than the other half, and I've never seen people contribute or love a place more than them. Honestly, right? Their age and everything, and just begins respect. They have, right? Sorry, they have shared an experience that, as I speak to you, almost brings tears to my eyes. They'll go into an establishment like a hotel, willing to be patrons at the restaurant or inquire about spending a week. These are people that you may be looked at as white in Bermuda. These people will be looked at wetter than white in Nordic countries. Mm-hmm. So it's not that. My accent may be mistaken for a Cayman and theirs won't. Mm-hmm. Right? And as generous and kind and considerate as the best of us, these are more so, and they're elderly. To be treated in a way, right, that, oh, you're not here, you're not a guest, you're not welcome. And this is happening now.
Oh, that's a great example. And just to show you, I think it's indicative of what I was talking about. When there was lockdown and businesses were struggling to stay afloat, mm-hmm. every Caymanian, every person that had the ability to pay their bill, go to that restaurant, eat that food, order a meal, have the drink, hang out, was welcomed. What is happening is we've gone back to a pre-COVID type experience whereby apparently our money isn't good enough anymore. And there is a negative connotation to locals being in your establishment. But we were good enough during lockdown. I think we, as consumers and as patrons, we have the power to do two things. Keep showing up. Keep showing up because no one should bar you from anywhere in the Cayman Islands. This is not South Africa during the apartheid.
Or even today.
You should not accept that level of disrespect from anybody when you are a law-abiding citizen and a person that can pay your way. You might have to wait for a table to free up, but wait.
But that's,
You know? Because if that's what you want to spend your money, and if that's what you want to eat or drink or experience, that's your right. But when you experience the ignorance, the bigotry, and the discrimination, capture that moment. Everybody has a cell phone. Make sure you use social media to your advantage. Write a letter of complaint to whomever is in charge. Then write it to your MP. Write it to the licensing agency, whether it be the Department of Tourism or some sort of equivalent board that issues licenses, because we have to purge the country from those level of those types of personalities who are best described as bigots, as racists, and as cancers to the society that we are living in. Cayman is welcoming to everybody. We don't have to accommodate your bigotry. You have to be open-minded and respectful in the way that we have always been to you. If you are any person of Caymanian stock, new Caymanian for 5 minutes or for 5 generations, I think the strength that you demonstrate is by all of us rallying around that situation so that you are not alone. I'll go back to one thing. CPR, previous administration, basically they were going head first with the proposed cruise berthing facility, which was all based on lies. Everything that the government said was lies. $11 million spent on a PR campaign that was nothing short of garbage, okay? To advance an agenda to help a select few people. What stopped that from happening, and thank God we had the foresight, the vision, and the courage to pursue that, was the people rallied around. And it wasn't one person or 2 people or 5 people. It was hundreds. It became thousands, whereby we demanded answers, and we were holding the previous administration, the PPM-led unity government, accountable for the lies, the misrepresentations, and the gibberish that they threw out there.
But also for accounting for the public's expenditure.
That was the basis, but you got to realize where they messed up was they lied about the cost. They lied about the expenditure that it would be to the public purse. They lied about the economic impact, the environmental impact. And once they told you that there was going to be 999 jobs for people, but they couldn't really tell you where those jobs were and how you apply to get them, it all fell apart. So they failed at the basic math, the financial projections, where they lied and said the cruise lines would pay for it and government wouldn't have to pay for it. We subsequently found out that government were going to surrender $2.32 times 3.5 million passengers over the course of that project, which then equals something like $400 million. But you got to look at the devil is always in the details. They lied about the environmental impact. And I'll say this, there are more people that are environmentally conscious today than at any point in the history of the Cayman Islands. I have a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, him and his classmates. If y'all think the older people are environmental protectionists or believe in conservation, I would hate to see when he's 15, because that's what they know to be their normal from day one. And there's nothing wrong with development. There's nothing wrong with development. It's a pillar of our economy, but we need to strike a balance whereby everybody has a place, and we can agree to disagree without hating each other. But the thing is, we got to be respectful and do so in a manner that makes sense. What we cannot do is elect people that advance agendas where they will blatantly lie to the public and then use government resources to punish the public. That is unacceptable. For the government to try to make a mockery of that process and to demonize individuals in the Cruiseport referendum group, that showed you who they were. Shirley Ralston is a national hero in my eyes. When we're giving out knighthoods and OBEs and MBEs, the fact that Shirley Ralston has not been proposed for one, it shows you that the system is rigged and there are certain people that should never be acknowledged. But Shirley has the courage, the character, and the support of many, because Shirley is all of us. And we all rally around her and we all support each other. So I go back to the point of, if you're at a restaurant and if I'm at a restaurant and I see somebody treating Sterling or Sterling's children in what I deem to be an unacceptable manner, that isn't a Sterling problem anymore. That's our problem, because that's not going to fly. And if every Caymanian who loves this country as much as they think or they say did that, all of those people that choose to be disrespectful and to be bigots, they would cut that out immediately. And then what we need to do, go a step further. If the person's name is John Smith and they're from wherever they're from, and they're part of that mistreatment or maltreatment or poor treatment of Caymanians, once that person has enough complaints on their files, they should not be given the opportunity to get a work permit, because we can find somebody else to do that job. You're not an expert server. You're not an expert bartender. You're not an expert waitress. These jobs are done by regular people, and we can find a replacement for you. When in Rome, respect the Romans, and that's a two-way street. If there's a Caymanian that is acting up, or a group of Caymanians that are acting up, please, Mr. Sterling, can you turn on the volume, sir? Other patrons are in the restaurant and we'd like to all enjoy it. That's respectful, and that's a two-way street. But what happens in Cayman is where classism is real. Okay? There are certain spots that Caymanians choose not to go to, and I say to every Caymanian, go. I go to watch football, and I'm a football avid fan, right? I go anywhere to watch football. But I go to certain places where the traditional multi-generational Caymanian don't go. But I go 4 and 5 deep. So you got to deal with us now. Because we're here to watch football like everybody else. And there's nothing in the law that says that bar is for the British. That bar is for the Canadians. That bar is for whatever, the Latinos and so on and so forth. We are in control of where we go and how we spend our money. And we are in control of how we accept and tolerate bigotry, discrimination, and disrespect.
At some point, I want to ask you about, and this is the question I'm writing. Are we at risk of losing that control? We've seen to have lost the economic franchise. The political franchise is seemingly in peril as well.
The short answer is yes. It is too easy to get Caymanian permanent residency. It is too easy to get Caymanian status. We need significant immigration reform, and the persons that qualify to get the benefits of becoming Caymanian, it can't just be because of how much money you earn. It has to be about the way that you integrate with the society. I love my dog. I love your dog. I love dogs. I like animals. But walking a dog can't be more important and get more points than integrating with Caymanian people.
I did something specifically. I do this,
and I use that as an example.
I do this with many discussions of this. I want to get a pulse, and so I asked that question of a number of people, many of whom, or the majority of the group, are Caymanian but born elsewhere. Some are long-term residents, and I kid you not one single individual. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. It's not empirical. I don't even consider it scientific. It's just me asking and sort of probing. And they have all, without even being prompted, volunteered. Listen, if someone said we, some said you don't get a handle on where the country is at. The economic power is shifted. You now don't recognize, but you're losing the political franchise. And if the country isn't coming to grips with it, you're going to find yourself divided along many lines. And these are, for want of a better word, people who were born, raised, spent their early part of their formative years in early adulthood in other countries. And now they're here. And their level of insight and concern for the future economic, political, and social stability, I think should be an awakening for Caymanians?
Well, those of us, it's funny. It's almost as if everybody that's in a leadership position, elected and non-elected, lives in a bubble. How is it that the common person can see the shift and the new Cayman that will be developed, but the persons who have their hands on the levers of power and policy and implementation, how is it they don't see exactly what you described? Because let's face it, there is an objective to have everybody qualify to run for political office in Cayman. That is something, there's a white paper written out of the UK on that. That is something that is being contemplated and discussed. But I think I can say this confidently for all Caymanians, we're not going to allow that. You got to put in your time. We have laws that are clear and that set out what the criteria is, right? And if you qualify, then sure, knock yourselves out. But we cannot afford to lose political power in this country, even if the vast majority of the new Caymanian population have no respect or time for the elected and non-elected leadership. What we need to do is, in the same way that you can remove an individual from office if they're not performing, if they're an MP, we need to do the same thing within the civil service. Being of royal Caymanian blood is not a good reason for you to get a job or to get a promotion. This has to be about competence. This is about KPIs, key performance indicators. And just because you're friends with the boss doesn't mean that you should be offered protection. I'm going to give you an example. I sit on a government board. I chair the Cayman Islands Airports Authority. I am, under the law, deemed to be a public officer. If I ever show up, or if my actions and conduct and decision making ever shows up in an Auditor General report where it is clear as day that I am responsible for breaking the laws and breaching the Constitution, they will send a SWAT team to my house. I will be embarrassed. I will be shackled and have handcuffs on me in front of my family because I make enough noise and I talk my truth, which offends many. So if you're going to do that to me as a public official, how come in the recent Auditor General's report, the chief officer who clearly broke the law and the Auditor General stands by her findings in the report, and there are multiple findings, how come that individual is still employed? And not just that, gets a new position where they got to choose which ministries or portfolios or subjects they were going to be responsible for. Is that individual more Caymanian than me? Am I less Caymanian than him? Am I more Caymanian than him? Is it because I'm a Caymanian of color? Is it because they are not, because they're of royal Cayman blood? These are questions and conversations that are taking place. But you know who's responsible for fixing all of that? Our own Caymanian leaders who are in the system. They will say, well, it's a civil service matter. Well, civil service manager, civil service leader, that person broke the law. I expect for you to do to that individual what I know you would do to me. And I can say to you, if I ever show up in an Auditor General's report, they will make an example of me. Because apparently I'm a threat to the system because I say what I say and I mean what I say. But if you break the law, you break the law, and there has to be consequences for everybody. And if your excuse is, well, we did an investigation and there was nothing, we found nothing in the investigation, how is it your boss can do an investigation and conclude that you did nothing wrong? There's that right there is the charade of good governance. There should have been an independent investigation into the allegations coming out of the Auditor General's report. Your boss and the person that promotes you as the next deputy governor cannot be the person who runs the investigation into your conduct and potential alleged breaches of the law. You cannot do that that's what they do in African countries where it is a banana republic. If you want to be taken seriously, do things properly.
All right. Let's pick up on that when we come back. I think, as you were saying, I'm thinking to the premise within courts, a man cannot be a judge in his own cause, I think is what you lawyers refer to, right? So let's chat about some other things. Johan Moxham is our guest. Stay tuned.
a caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
During June, CUC and CUC's subcontractors UMC will be erecting and framing poles between 7 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Mondays to Fridays on Rex Crichton Boulevard between Prospect Primary and Norfolk Drive. Motorists are asked to exercise extreme caution when using Rex Crichton Boulevard as there will be traffic management in place. For more information, contact 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Ransomware, DDoS, malware, phishing. If you don't know what those mean, you're not alone. But if you aren't protected against those cybersecurity attacks, then your business is at risk. Don't leave your data or your business vulnerable. Get Digicel Business Protect. Simpler, smarter cybersecurity. Visit our website, www.digicelbusiness.com, to request a callback or call us now on 623-2499.
Attention, micro and small business owners. The Cayman Islands Center for Business Development invites you to its Raising Capital Forum. The forum is intended to provide micro and small businesses with information on how to raise capital and know what is available in the financial landscape, funding options, and requirements. The forum takes place at the Marriott Beach Resort, Thursday, June 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. To register, go to the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development website at cicbd.gov.ky or email cicbd@gov.ky, or you can call 345-244-8009.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thank you very much for joining us. And thanks to you, Mark. I'll say this just in passing, as I shared earlier. I like your forthrightness. When you were chamber president, I think you were always respectful of the organization and the position, but you shared a perspective that is what is the same now. You said what you believe, you stood by your convictions, right? Your last sentiment, some may hear that and be offended. Some may perhaps interpret, misunderstand. Now, I don't know about other people, but I will be the first to say that I don't know everything that's happening in the world. I don't know everything about everything. A lot I don't know about, and I don't follow as much as the international media as I would like to. I don't know if I have the time. But I gather that unfolding in the UK, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, there is some public sort of disclosure. The Scottish MP, George Galloway, I think, did a little video as he normally does, and he talked about something similar, the sort of the double standards and the like, and it reminded me of what you were just sharing. Help and enlighten me, please.
There shouldn't, first of all, there shouldn't be a double standard. You either comply with the law or you've broken the law.
Okay.
If you've broken the law and you've willfully broken the law, there's consequences for that. Because if I willfully break the law, there's consequences for me. If you step out of line as a Radio Cayman host and you have me on your show again anytime soon, somebody's going to call into the director of Radio Cayman and go, put a leash on Sterling because this is unacceptable. But my question is, we're just having a conversation. I'm not rioting. I'm not leading any sort of revolution. I'm merely expressing a widely held view because I'm brave enough and competent enough and eloquent enough, I guess, to do so in a manner that you've asked for a conversation, and I don't have a problem in doing that. But I say all that to say this. Yeah. The fact that we are accepting of the double standards in this country, and the situation that you're referring to is the Chancellor of the Exchequer has now called for an investigation into the leak.
Yeah.
The irony of that, when you consider that my friend the governor and my friend the deputy governor were more focused in on finding out who leaked an Auditor General's report than the substance of the claims in the report. And they spent energy in trying to find out where it was leaked. Well, I can tell you, there's nothing in the building at Go Up that is a secret. There is nothing. People talk, people see, people know. What I'd like to find out is, did they do a forensic audit on the IT system of the individual who was subject of the report? And if you do a forensic audit, would that audit show you where that report may have been emailed or sent to? Because for you to look and find a boogeyman or a ghost or something or somebody and to come up with nothing, maybe the individual in question shared the report with people. And again, once I tell you a secret, I'm stupid to believe that you're not going to tell your best friend who tells his best friend who tells her best friend, and then the mushroom grows from there. But when you have a press conference and you focus in on a leak as opposed to the substance of the report, we are doing something's wrong. But it's interesting to see that the Chancellor of the Exchequer, apparently there must be something in the management manual where that's what you say or that's what you do. Okay. What would be interesting is, and we as the public, we need to watch this. Will the Auditor General, Sue Winspear, be sacrificed and have consequences for writing that report, but more importantly, standing by her report? Because the press release that came out in justifying and the announcement that, the individual in question did nothing wrong and everything was fine, it was fluff in comparison to the substantive issues in the Auditor General's report. But she should not be punished for doing her job. She should not be punished for being a professional and standing by her work when that was what was requested of her. But we will now see what the non-elected government leadership is made of. Because if they sacrifice the Auditor General for doing the right thing, ladies and gentlemen in the civil service, just know that you're next. But we're going to sacrifice one individual whilst we protect and promote the individual who's the subject of the actual Auditor General report. And that, ladies and gentlemen, should cause us all sleepless nights when it is that blatant, when it is that it attacks your senses and your sensibilities if they're allowed to get away with that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything that no one else has said or no one else thinks. I'm just putting it out there in the public domain because accountability and good governance has to start at the very top of the pyramid. You can't expect it from the bottom if the examples of good governance and accountability are not present at the very top in the pyramid of power.
All right, let's do a news break. When we come back, we were alluding to it, but maybe more definitively, where we are as a country. And I'm intrigued by not just your courage, but the willingness to give a considered perspective and to speak a sense of accuracy. And with that, maybe it'll spark us to have a little bit more of insight into our own endeavors. We'll pause and take a break. When we return, continue the discussion with Johan Moxham.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news. Customs and Border Control says there was, quote, tense situation reported Wednesday evening with migrants at the centre. CBC is working with their partner agencies, including Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, Her Majesty's Cayman Islands Prison Service, and Public Health to defuse the situation. In international news, doctors in Afghanistan told the BBC that many children have been killed in Wednesday's earthquake. More than 1,000 people died in the disaster, and heavy rain, threadbare resources and rugged terrain are hampering rescue workers. Unknown numbers were buried in the rubble of ruined, often mud-built homes by the magnitude 6.1 earthquake. By Wednesday night, Taliban officials said search and rescue operations had finished in most places, although in remoter areas, some continued still. The U.S. Supreme Court has struck down a New York law restricting gun carrying rights. The law required residents who want a license to prove proper cause to carry concealed weapons and that they faced a special or unique danger. The 6-3 decision stated the requirement violates the constitutional right to bear arms. The ruling jeopardizes similar restrictions in other states and expands gun rights. And the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have had their official portrait painted together for the first time. The portrait, painted by award-winning British portrait artist Jamie Corrith, has gone on display at the University of Cambridge's Fitzwilliam Museum. The artwork of Prince William and Catherine was commissioned last year by the Cambridgeshire Royal Portrait Fund as a gift to the people of the country. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Cayman, get ready for Blossom Premium All-Inclusive. Come enjoy ambience, sweet soca music, and a star-powered cast featuring Sherwayne Winchester. Sherwayne Winchester.
Now we back on the road. Yo, this is Sherwayne Winchester. Blossom Premium All-Inclusive. Sweet soca all night long.
Sherwayne Winchester.
Jump up in the band. Everybody make a Blossom Premium All-Inclusive. I will be there. Sherwayne Winchester. Oh, now.
Thursday, 30th June at the National Gallery. Party time 7 p.m. to midnight. Dress code light cocktail attire. Blossom Premium All-Inclusive. A production of Calabra and SW Limited.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday to Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you very much for joining us. And in the studio, Johan Moxum is our guest, and thanks very much. And as you reference George Galloway, I think some of us would probably recognize him, probably have seen his contributions even as a sitting parliamentarian. But the candidness with which he shares things sometimes, I don't know if it's the Scottish lilt or otherwise, but I enjoy listening to him. I'll be honest with you, the first time I was introduced to his stuff, I thought it was a comedian, right? But it's because, of how it's presented. But it's factual, and it resonates with us. So whether it's in the UK that this is, sort of transpiring, or whether it's here, it seems, I like how you sort of jovially said, is that the management manual that dictates, the protocol.
If your first reaction is to try and find out how the information was disseminated or the leak, and not deal with the key issues, that speaks to, I think, a level of implied guilt and the fact that you were complicit in some type of nefarious or questionable activity, because you can't write a report and ignore the report, but you won't find out where Sterling got the report from.
Yeah. But
I'll tell you the secret. It probably came out of that building. You know what I mean?
Boy, stop behaving yourself. but in our constitution, we talk about commissions that promote democracy and like. I don't know that this is accurate. I stand by it because I think it to be so. Early on, as I was coming into my own, I understood that the Office of the Auditor General served the role to look at, governments. It was an independent role. It was there to be objective and just be professional. I don't think there's anybody, even from my first introduction, the days of Nigel S. Dale, for instance, coming forward. I think anybody has questioned whether there is not that objectivity and independence. Even the Public Accounts Committee over the years would have issue, but they would say, well, this is what transpired, and they respect the competence, the objectivity.
But let's take that a step further. The Auditor General's office over the years has done a good job. Some might not like the personalities of the Auditor General. Some of them, it is perceived, or it has been said, became media celebrities whilst in the role. But the current holder of that position is a model professional, thorough, competent, and clear in what they're looking at and how it's reported. If we now get to the stage whereby this Auditor General and multiple Auditor Generals have written reports that speak to recommendations that have yet to be implemented by core government, the author or the Office of the Auditor General is not the problem. The problem now is the leadership of the system, whereby 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, multiple reports are written on the same thing, and there is no moving of the needle to get things done. That's a lack of accountability. We now need to look to why aren't these things being done? Is it a lack of resources? Is it mismanagement? Is it incompetence? Or is there just the pretense that we have these systems in place to say that we have them, but we don't really intend to actually do the right thing? Because it makes no sense for the Auditor General's office to exist and for reports to be written if core government fail to act and to implement in a timely manner the same reports and recommendations that seem to appear year after year or report after report. There's no this is not a personal this is not a personal attack on anybody. This speaks to poor management and poor leadership, wherever it might be. Who's responsible for the implementation of the recommendations? It's the person that's leading the civil service. Or it's the head of a department, or it's the head of a portfolio, or it's somebody in a leadership role. If those individuals cannot prioritize and make the implementation and addressing those recommendations a priority, they are failing in their management role. We should not be having the same conversation today that we were having 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. That speaks to a square peg in a round hole, or they are deliberately failing to do their job because there's a consequence for that, or there is a protection mechanism in place. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying anything that isn't real, because if you go through anybody working in the civil service, if they find themselves in a Auditor General's report, they likely will not have their jobs anymore, especially when there are accusations and allegations that you've broken the law and breached the Constitution. So what makes you worthy enough to be sanctioned, but the other individual isn't? That's a management decision. That's a management decision. That's a management decision. Based on what? And those are the variables that we need to understand, because if we're going to say that Cayman's a first world country and we're doing things in a first world manner, we should be able to have transparency, accountability, and good governance at the forefront of everything we say, everything we do, and it is demonstrated no matter who you are. Because if the chairman of the Cayman Islands Airport Authority does something untowards that is illegal or questionable, I will be held accountable. If you do it, you'll be held accountable. If Miss Susan does it, if the director of Radio Cayman does it, they'll be held accountable.
As it should be.
As they should be.
Okay.
So we've now established what the standard is. So why are there exceptions to that standard?
That shouldn't just be a rhetorical question, should it? But let me
It's not rhetorical. We're dealing with the facts.
Yeah.
Listen, you can have 7 children, but mom loves all of them, you know. Every mother loves all their children. How is it you can love one more than the next?
But don't you not love them differently?
Listen to me. If the one that keeps giving you the trouble and has a history of messing up on everything they do and they just bad at everything that they've touched, you can love them, you know, but you can say to yourself, can't let that one watch the fridge because he can eat all the food.
Okay.
Or he can break something and we can't afford to do that. But my point is, the standard has to be the standard, and you cannot have a sliding scale of accountability. You cannot have a sliding scale of what good governance looks like. And I'm not saying this to attack any individual. I'm using common examples of what is happening in the system, whereby we need to understand that we have to hold those that are in leadership positions accountable, whether they are elected or non-elected, because they're all part of the process. If you are a chief officer and you fail to carry out the policy directives of your minister, you should no longer be a chief officer. Because this isn't about whether you like the chief officer, the minister or not, you know. This is about being professional. This is about demonstrating objectivity and neutrality to do your job. And we have chief officers and senior civil servants that basically make up their own rules as they go along. But you know what happens? The public are duped into thinking, man, Sterling as an MP, he never did nothing, you know, he just useless. Sterling didn't get a chance to implement his policies. You know why? The system of the civil service or key individuals in the civil service decided that minister isn't going to succeed and I don't like them. That cannot be allowed to continue. The civil service is now a political party and a political machinery, and it operates as such. You got to hold everybody to the same standard. I'll give you an example. Minister Bernie Bush, whatever he did, he was sanctioned for, right or wrong. But if you can sanction a sitting minister and you fail to sanction a senior civil servant for a breach of the Constitution and laws that are printed and shared in the public domain in an Auditor General's report, you're telling me that a civil servant is less culpable or less likely to be held accountable, but the elected minister or elected official can? That's chaos, and that is not the type of country we need to have, that I want to live in, and nobody that works in that building should feel that they will be offered the level of protection, because it isn't about you, it's about the connectivity to other things that none of us know about, and that's what's wrong.
So let me, as I get ready to read a comment sent in by one of our listeners, we are speaking to Johan Moxham. To your point about accountability and good governance and the like, and given the George Callaway's sort of recent and again continued publication highlighting what is transpiring in the UK, we see that in other parts. Let me then ask you, we are probably more prone to hold the politically elected accountable. We get every 4 years to do so. But then and guide me so that I don't misunderstand or misspeak, if, as we understand it, His Excellency is the head of the civil service delegated to the Deputy Governor, the chief officers, and then the hierarchy that follows. If something is alleged, whether by the Auditor General or otherwise, where and how is that level of accountability implemented, and how is it initiated, so that if George does something, how is George called to account?
I'm quite sure that there are policies and procedures in place within the civil service that can speak to that. But that is a question best addressed by the Deputy Governor. Ultimately, he seems to be in charge of everything, because if you were in the private sector and you were my employee and you were my direct report, there would be an audit committee that investigates these matters. The findings of that report would then go to another grouping, because of our direct relationship, I would lack the objectivity or the ability to be neutral, and therefore that could harm the outcome of the investigation and the report. So I would remove myself immediately from ruling on this matter, because ultimately I am unable to be objective, because for years I've worked with you, and for years I've told everybody that you're a great guy, you're my best worker, you're the future. Having all those positive thoughts, don't you think that would invariably influence how decisions get made?
So back to what?
So again, the short answer is
yeah.
That question is best addressed by the Deputy Governor and the Governor.
If you look at what we understand from the public utterances, but also the practice within the courts, as I said earlier, a man cannot be a judge in his own cause. And then the other one that we hear often is, not only should justice be done, but it should be seen to be done. So with that is transpiring, we hold the politically elected and appointed, whether boards or otherwise, to account. But the others of us who are appointed, as it goes up, is there then the issue of the UK through the office of the governor and then filtering down, or is it us as the populace saying, "Oh, this isn't,"
I think officially there's a relationship, with the Foreign Commonwealth Office and clearly the senior levels of the administrative government here. That's a given. But before you even get to that, chief officers have been held accountable before.
Okay.
Miss Doreen Whitaker is one of the nicest ladies you'll ever meet. She had one bad experience at PAC. She was retired. She never showed up in any Auditor General's reports. She's never been alleged to have breached any parts of the Constitution. But a decision was made that it was time, and she was held accountable, and she was effectively retired. That's the right way we put it, right? So we have a precedent where we have the ability to do that to one chief officer. What makes this one special? And why can't we do it across the board? Because that's the standard that we set now. Right. For me, the point is the standard. And it's a standard in education. It's a standard in leadership. It's a standard in everything across the board. Because, Sterling, does your phone ever click where you think somebody's listening to your calls? Well, I can tell you, I know people are listening to my calls because I'm saying the things that I say here now. But what have I done? What law have I broken? What lie have I told? I might have mashed a few corns and embarrassed a few people, but if you have a standard and that standard is open, transparent, and applicable to all, you don't ever hear from people like me. You're spending resources to review my activity, but the people that are in Auditor General reports where it is alleged that they broke the law, they're on trips all over the world and they're rewarded because they're friends of.
Right. Let me read a couple of comments sent to our listeners. Our guest is obviously Johan Moxham. This listener shares, so we need to be very careful as any corruption rises to the point that it would give the UK a chance to direct rule like they are waiting to do in the BVI.
If the UK did not go into the BVI for whatever the reasons are, I can't imagine that they'd be on a fast track to implement direct rule here. I don't think it's necessary yet. I think we have to be honest with ourselves, and we know what the problems are. And those that are brave enough, strong enough, competent enough, and those that believe in a system of honesty and transparency and fairness, they can't kill all of you if you're all banded together.
Oh, at the same time, right?
Yeah, at the same time.
All right.
You know?
So this person writes, a super show today. These things need to be said and said by a Caymanian. Hearing a Caymanian speak out like this, that bodes well for the country. Congratulations.
Thank you for that. But I'm going to give you the flip side to it. Let's move away from the civil service. The way Cayman operates right now is this. There are certain people, or there are certain types of people that think the rules don't apply to them. There are people that are regulated by any agency, but they will tell the regulating body what they will and will not do. You know why? Because for years, they were exempt from any form of consistent applications to the rules. So what happens is you develop a sort of mindset that, well, that rule doesn't apply to me, that applies to Sterling. You can never be talking to me. And that's the problem, whereby when you leave things unchecked and things grow, they become like cancers to the point where they metastasize and it's just the norm. We're talking about these topics here because no Caymanian is better than the next Caymanian. If you break the law, you broke the law. You should deal with the consequences of it.
So, speaking of that, is there a plan for Cayman and Caymanians?
I think Caymanians have a plan. Each Caymanian family has a plan. Is there a plan at a national level? We don't have a national development plan. I don't think we have a national education plan. I don't think we have a national workforce development plan. I don't think we have a national sort of plan that encompasses or incorporates the next generation of Caymanian coming through, because, and I get the numbers of it all. What nobody will tell you is we are so reliant on revenue from work permits that we aren't prepared to have a report that says we know that there's 10,000 students away at school. We know of that 10,000 students, we got 3 people that are going to be doctors. We got 5 people that are going to be engineers. We got 20 people that want to be lawyers, and we got 40 people that want to be accountants, or whatever the number is. Right. The private sector does a better job of incorporating talent than government does in mapping out what we have and what we are developing for. The fact that we don't have a national housing sort of strategy, and I'm not talking about this government. These issues that we're talking about today in 2022 have existed for 20 years, 30 years. But what happens is, and we are to blame, we elect nice people that do things like buy your vote. We're not really interested in people with a solution. Most people see an election as an opportunity to get theirs. But when that politician is giving you what you think is yours, that is a crumb, because that money comes from the persons that own and control that politician. So you are selling yourself out for something short now, for some porridge now, whilst they're on all the trips and they're living the 5-star life. Because I'm going to say this, if we were serious about stamping out corruption in this country, what the Anti-Corruption Commission and unit and the powers that be should do is look at the financial status of an individual before they get into government. Chart their net worth whilst they're in government. Look at their net worth after they've left government. And you will understand, if you know that somebody is an elected official and they make as a cabinet minister $160,000 a year, and you know they didn't buy those 20 acres of land, before they were elected, but they now got 20 acres of land and all the rest of it whilst they were in office, you do the math. There are people that will run my finances, that will run your finances, but we're not looking at PEPs. We're not looking at senior elected officials. We're not looking at senior civil servants. But if a customs officer has a gardening company, we're all over that. That customs officer has a business to supplement their earnings, but we're looking into that. But the people that we know only earn X, there's never an investigation, or there's never any sort of register of interest or anything at all. And I'm going to tell you why the system doesn't work. I ran for an election in 2021. We filled out this Standards in Public Life law, register of interest. That is supposed to be private. And I can say to you, I know of a chief officer who could basically tell somebody else what my register of interest looked like, what I had invested in, and what, my financial position, for the want of a better word, was.
Yeah.
This was all supposed to be confidential, private, and locked away. And I can tell you who it is. That's how the system works. So when the governor and the deputy governor start talking about we're looking for leaks, I can tell you who did that, who said that. Coincidentally, it happened to be the person who was in the Auditor General's report who broke the law and is alleged to have breached the Constitution. So when they're talking about a standard, guys, whatever that is, let's address it, let's fix it, but don't come chasing Johan when you don't chase the guy that basically peddles power and influence because he is beholden to a political group. Because there are senior civil servants that are that are affiliated with and work for politicians. And if their government isn't in, they're not doing anything to help this government succeed. That's a fact.
But the Westminster model, as we understand it, and guide me if I don't have it correct, says that as a civil servant, you serve the interests of the elected government, you provide the technical competence, and you go about it in an impartial, objective way. And again, as I understand, if you as an elected member of the government can agree with the government stand, you are to offer your resignation to the Prime Minister. That's how we understand the Westminster model to work. We seemingly supposed to follow that. Is it not happening?
When there's a sliding scale and the rules apply to different people, you don't know what you're going to get here. There's no consistency. I'm sorry. I'm going to give you this. If there's an individual, let's just use anybody. If there's a person of means who basically applies for a duty rebate, a concession, or an abatement, and they're of means, and I'm talking real money, and they get whatever it is that they requested. But if you go build a piece of land or you buy a piece of land for your kids and you want to put some apartments down, well, Sterling, we can't do that for you. Well, what was the justification you used for the other guy that had means, that is fresh to the island or a new Caymanian, and they got their concessions and they got their abatements? How is it you, Sterling, didn't get the same consideration, but a person of means who could easily pay the taxes didn't? So you're asking me a question that only the people in the positions of power can give you an answer to. Some would dare say that it's corruption. I'm not going to call it corruption. I call it the sliding scale of depending on who you are. But all we want and all we deserve as citizens is consistency. If John Smith, billionaire, didn't have to pay any stamp duty for acquiring all that land, Sterling Ebanks and Johan Moxham, I'd like the same sort of privilege, please. And I know I'm not a billionaire, and I know Sterling not a billionaire. But the point is, and that's the best example.
Okay.
That's the best example. You got land in West Bay, you go clear some land now. The forces will be all over you. Yet there are individuals that clear land every day, every week, every month, every year. Nobody knocked on their door yet. They not said, what makes that individual more important, more Caymanian, more deserving of than you?
As I listen to you, my mama's words always resonate. She says, kisses go by favors.
That's what we call it?
Yeah.
I call it follow the money.
Follow the money. All right, let's pause and take a break. When we come back, his insight, his intellect, his eloquence, his charisma, charm, but I think also his confidence and considered opinion. Johan Moxham. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office. Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the year again as the New Self-Help Foundation presents Gratitude.
Gratitude is a must.
The 21st Annual Talent Exposition of the Arts, Sunday, June 26th at the Hartwell Theater. Performances by UCCI dancers, Mariah Praise, Radiance Dance Studio, Andrea Rivera,
May not be thunder crashing down.
Dream Chasers K-Man, hosted by former Miss K-Man Universe, Anika Connolly, and Lloyd Barker. Part proceeds from the Talent Exposition will benefit the Pines Retirement Home. Prepaid tickets available at Funky Tanks, Winner Circle Sports. Tickets are $15, $20 at the gate. Gratitude. The 2022 Talent Exposition of the Arts, Sunday, June 26th at the Hartwell Theater. Gates open at 5 p.m. Show starts 6 p.m. Get your tickets today.
The Honorable Minister for Health, Wellness and Home Affairs, Ms. Sabrina Turner, is pleased to announce the registration is now open for the Prospect Youth Summer Camp. Registration for this multi-focus camp is completely free for all Prospect children ages 4 to 17. The 5-week camp will run from July 11th to August 12th. Interested parents can register at the constituency office at number 33 Marina Drive, Prospect. For more information on the Prospect Youth Summer Camp, call 746-9314 or 929-8080.
Your Yesteryear Musical, Saturday evenings at 8 o'clock on Breeze Radio. Entertaining, enlightening, and inspirational. Topical with CI cultural and heritage flashbacks and the wonderful music of yesteryear, from the Thomas Edison era to the recent past. Your Yesteryear Musical, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on Breeze Radio, 105.3 FM in Grand Cayman and 91.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks too to Mr. Johan Moxon for being our guest. Can I read this other sentiment expressed by one of our listeners? It says, every country in the world has corrupt governments. And the rot starts with politicians who get kickbacks or benefits one way or the other. Top civil servants must have dirt on them and use that silence to benefit themselves. So the government has gotten too big and way too many foreigners in the civil service. That has led to loss of integrity. The mix is diluting our moral standards. That's shared by one of our listeners, Mr. Moxon.
That is the opinion of the individual, and who am I to second guess that? But I would say, from my perspective, I think dishonesty does not have a limit to individuals as they describe as from abroad. Mm-hmm. I know quite a few dishonest and incompetent Caymanians in leadership positions in the civil service. So I don't think we can blame anybody. I think you are either at your core decent and you know the difference between right and wrong, or you are deceitful and prepared to do whatever it takes to get ahead. And as long as nobody catches you, then you can continue to pretend to be a nice person. There are many sinners that go to church that do a lot of bad things, but when they're in church, they look like,
saints.
So I that's their perspective. But again, what I think we need to do as a country is stop inventing the boogeyman from abroad. We have our own local issues. We have our own local problems. We have our own local personalities that have duped the public into thinking just because you're polite and you smile doesn't mean that they don't have a level of gangster to them. Okay? And for so long, we have relied on, well, he's such a nice person. And they're so good. And that man spoke to me. But that man is no better than you, because we're all equals. If you are religious in the eyes of the Lord, we are all his children and we're all equals. If that is what you believe and that's what you follow, then go with that. But We gotta look past the veneer or the first layer and look at a person's intent and their actions. Because I can be the politest person in the world, and as soon as you leave the room, that's Sterling not no good, you know. To be honest, you got to watch them West Bay, because you know, especially the ball ones, the little short ball ones, they're worse. But that's what happens.
Yeah. But the scripture talks about, you know, by their fruits you shall know them. All right.
So can I get an amen, bro?
Amen. I say, and we are apt to recite it when it's convenient. We say, to whom much is given, much is required. But the question is, go back to the issues of accountability, transparency, good governance. Go back to the issue of what may be lacking from what I'm hearing you say. We do not have, as a country, a societal ethos that says we're doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. All and sundry are treated, you know, equally and impartially. But yet, from what you shared, it seems that some of us can act with impunity. So how then do we get to a space where you're doing this thing, and if you don't do it this way, this is the consequence, irrespective?
By calling it what it is.
Okay.
If you are in a department and you know that Sterling, me and you work in the same department, there's 5 of us, and I know that I'm busting my tail and I'm doing my bit, and Sterling is the darling of the department, I don't think it's disrespectful to ask, how did Sterling get that promotion? I work every weekend and I come in and I do the extra mile. What do I need to do to be considered for that level of advancement? Because if you ask anybody in this department, confidentially, we all will tell you when nobody's around, Sterling didn't deserve that promotion.
But cases go by favors.
Well, then, we got to call that out too. Because the Royal Cayman families that existed, Cayman's a melting pot now. We're a pretty cosmopolitan sort of country.
Call Lou, my physician friend, shared that. I like that. No, I'm boring now. So a wonderful call. I like it.
No, fair.
And
I can live with that.
Yeah, man.
But I think power is given to somebody, you know. Power isn't really earned. Okay? Respect is earned. You don't just give respect. Somebody has to do something for that. But if you're a professional, if you're considerate, and if you know you're doing your best, it's well within your right to ask the question of, how did Sterling get our job, sir?
But
and then you follow it up when you know that somebody's going to come back at you and go, that Johan's a bit of a troublemaker. I can put it in writing, and I can take it to HR, and then I'm going to take it to whatever the process includes, because asking questions when you know you're doing the right thing, if there's any justice in this system called government, governance, whatever, you should not be punished for being respectful, speaking the truth, and being able to back up what you're saying with proven facts. Just because you're from West Bay doesn't mean, and I use you as an example, doesn't mean you should be given the promotion because I'm from West Bay and I can only trust my people. There has to be a process that we go through. You cannot have interviews. You cannot give somebody a position to go and run the London office unless you actually had interviews with multiple people. That's wrong. Because there's a process, right? So what made that individual special or deserving of that opportunity? But you didn't do it. I didn't know about it. She wanted to do it, but she never got a chance. So all I'm saying is, asking the question, there's nothing wrong in asking the question. The problem will come when the question is answered and the question is a lie. And that's what's wrong with us.
The answer's a lie. Yeah.
Bro, if you right now are trying to apply and become Miss Norma's job, there's a process that you go through where we have a position of director of Radio Cayman coming up. You have to apply for that. Yes? So I'll use this as an example. To head up the London office, that's a government department, right? Applicants apply for that, right? Okay. So how is it sometimes we get people placed into these positions and nobody else know about it?
As I listen,
because there's a process.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And if we believe in process, and if we believe in standards, and if we believe in transparency and good governance, we don't just use them as buzzwords, but we actually demonstrate that that's what the system is. Then everybody will know what we're doing and how the decision was made. Now, I'm not saying that you can't become the head of the London office, but you got to be given an opportunity to at least interview for it.
So compete. Okay, so as I listen to you then, again, kisses go by favors is something that I've understood.
That's how you catch STDs with all them kisses, to be honest with you.
Right? And STIs, no, they tell us.
STIs, sorry. You could tell how old we are.
Yeah, I won't learn that now. But the other thing is, what we heard, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. All right? So let me then ask, if within, and again, let's just use the public service.
Stop. Let me give you one example. Just pick up on that.
Go right ahead, sir.
If you show up in an Auditor General's report for breaching the law and breaching protocols and they fire you, you have a compelling case now to sue the government. You know why? There was somebody else that showed up in an Auditor General report that breached the Constitution and broke laws and protocols. And guess what?
But even...
You hear what I'm going. You see where I'm going.
I hear you.
And that's what the people got to understand. There are consequences for all these decisions because now anybody that gets fired... You now have a precedent in place where you need to fight that because you didn't show up in an Auditor General's report.
Right. But even with that, let me just step sideways for a second. In this society, and I'm told...
I love what you're doing. That was a great deflection from the major point. I am liberated from all of those sort of shackles by coming back to... Their decisions now determine what the standard is. So if that's the standard, good or bad, it got applied to everybody.
We would expect that a parent would hold all 7 of the children in your example accountable for, and I left you in charge, and this is what happened under your watch. How then do we get to a space where we expect, not just as a governance tool elected or appointed, but as a societal ethos, that we know this is going to happen? I'll give you an example. Friends who are from other jurisdictions share that they don't have to worry about laws passed or laws being enforced when somebody reports. Their cultural norm is that if you do this thing, you're going to incur, for want of a better phrase, the wrath of your fellow man, because we don't spit on the sidewalk, we don't throw litter on the side, we don't curse and graffiti at the subway, or whatever it is that cultural norm. You just don't do that, right? I was pleasantly, sort of given the opportunity to experience something where in another jurisdiction there is what is akin to a garage sale. The stuff is put on the front lawn. There's this big little container, and you go, you pick up your thing, you put your money in, and there's no haggling, there's no, take one and pay for that, or take 10 and pay for none. That was what was expected, right? And someone said, you won't do that here, or here. But that was the understanding there. And if you had a question about something, you could speak to the people. It was conducted in a very, I don't know how you would say, amenable way. Now, that's different from what you see in the stockyards where there's a bidding war and a frenzy. Not unlike what you probably see on the Florida Stock Exchange to some extent. We've got a short break to take. When we come back, I want to ask you some other things and, garner from you maybe whether there's hope or are we just helpless. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020. To celebrate Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, you are invited to plant a tree for the Jubilee. We need you, yes you, to leave your green mark on our Cayman Islands. Perhaps a mango tree, a little guinea, or mahogany. Register your tree and leave your green print at www.gov.ky/National Tree Planting or follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Plant a tree for the Jubilee. Proudly brought to you by the Cayman Islands Government, Ministry for Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. Let's green Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And if you want to share a thought, ask a question, you want to disagree, you want to compliment, you want to commend, you want to critique, hey, choice is yours. Be a part of our conversation. 949-8037, 949-6990, or 1-800-534-8255 with the compliments of Flo. We're speaking to Johan Moxham. And judging by the sentiments that we've received off air and the written sort of comments, a gathering of people are attentive. They're appreciative of what you're sharing. One, I'll paraphrase, questions whether what is said today will cause any of us now to do the right thing and to stand. And if it's just going to be, can I use the word hot air?
Listen, I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to be.
Mm-hmm.
I have a small circle of friends, and I have people that I respect greatly. My voice, my style, my message isn't for everybody, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I've always been. And if nothing else, I'm consistent. I know what I stand for. I know what I believe in. There's nothing in my life that's more important than my family. Nothing.
Mm.
You can have money, you can be broke. There's nothing more important in life than your family. I want my boys to have the same opportunities that Cayman afforded me.
If not better.
If not better.
Mm.
And I think anybody that really understands purpose in life wants the same thing for their families.
Mm-hmm.
Some might dismiss me as hot air, but I'll tell you what, nobody's not going to sue me. Nobody's going to threaten me or intimidate me because I got the receipts, I got the proof, I speak the facts. And if anybody in the government were adventurous enough to try and bring harm to me or my family, I've said it before and I'll say it again. They settled with Stuart Kernahan, the former Commissioner of Police, for a significant amount of money. By the time I'm finished, I'm going to be Stuart Kernahan rich because I'm speaking the truth. I'm speaking facts. I'm speaking from a position of having read and understand. Having run for an election, I get the game.
Mm.
And that's what this is. You call it kisses by favors, I call it corruption. Because if there's a sliding scale that doesn't apply to all of us, it's not fair. And if it's not fair, and you have a advantage over the next person, that means there's something wrong with that system. And if you purposely, and I'm just going to give an example. Think about jobs. You put out advertisements for jobs. You apply for the job. But we never wanted you because we wanted to give that job to John Ebanks. But we can't get that job to John Ebanks because now you basically applied. So what we do is we pull the ad and we come back a month later, 2 months later with an ad that says internal applicants only. There are rules that govern how that process works. So we didn't realize that it was for internal applicants only when you applied. You're Caymanian. You should be able to qualify for the job and at least get an interview.
Mm-hmm.
When you game the system and when you rig the system, that is corruption at its most basic levels. And in all facets of Cayman society, corruption is real. So this isn't hot air. If you are moved to try and make a difference in your place of work, if you are moved to try and make a difference in how Cayman operates, let's work together, because it isn't 2 people, it isn't 10 people. Let's help them understand what we are prepared to tolerate. And what we want is a clear, consistent standard that is applicable to all. And when you fail to do that, we're not going to go, he's such a nice man, he didn't mean when he said it like that. No, nice people make mistakes too. But if you're in a leadership position, be consistent. Apply that standard across the board. This isn't hot air. This is about you taking responsibility for how you want the system to work. If we're going to give concessions and duty abatements to wealthy people and billionaires and millionaires and everybody that shows up here off of a jet, you don't think the average Caymanian should be afforded the same sort of opportunities and economic relief?
If not more so.
This is home. There's something that you call home field advantage. Does it exist? In parts, yes, it does. But it should apply to all of us. I'm not looking for utopia, because utopia doesn't exist. I'm looking for a consistent application of the laws, because if I break the law, I got to deal with the consequences. If you break it, you got to deal with the consequences. Everybody else should be the same thing. We can fix Cayman. We can't allow them to do what they want. And whether you're elected or you're in the civil service, you are answerable to people, okay? The deputy governor works for the governor works for the UK. So technically the deputy governor works for the UK, if you think about it. But you see everybody else that is responsible for the implementation of government policy, which is crafted and dictated by the elected government. In the same way we're holding them accountable, the elected government, we can hold the policy implementation people or the technocrats accountable, because we don't have time to get Cayman wrong. We don't have 20 years to fix this. We have now. We don't have 20 years to fix the environmental issues. We don't have 20 years to fix the imbalance that exists in the socio-economic levels of Cayman. But what we can't do is we can't continue to lie to people and say, well, I'm going to give you money and that money is going to fix your problems, because the cost of everything is going up this way. So I'm giving you money, but you're already behind, so you're chasing these things.
It's cost plus inflation.
We got to have plans, but the biggest plan that we need to have is, how do we help our people get employment now? How do we help them train for the opportunities that are coming on the horizon? And how do we improve a woeful public education system?
All right. Let's join this caller. In the studio, our guest is Johan Moxham. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon, Johan. Hope you guys are okay.
Thank you.
How you doing?
How are you?
All right, I want to congratulate Johan for being so bold, because what he's saying is the truth. I mean, and he needs to stop painting it up to make it pretty for him. It's too much corruption, and you might as well call it corruption if it's corruption. Mr. Bush always says, if you quack like a duck, you walk like a duck, he's a duck. So we need to stop parading it for him, because it is too much corruption going on. So we need to call it out. That's like the banking association needs to be held accountable for some of these things that are going on in the banking industry. For instance, and OC said I mustn't call no bank names, but I think if we can call them good things, I don't see why you can't call them for their bad things that they're doing. I went to a particular bank, and I'll call the name, and to change a U.S. check which was drawn on their bank given to me by one of my clients. Now, when I get to the bank, because I don't have an account at that particular bank, they're going to tell me they're going to charge me $10 to cash a check. And then they're going to also tell me that because I'm not their client, I can't get CI. I have to take CI instead of U.S. Now I'm giving them a US check. If I had wanted to say, I would have told Michael, give me CF in the beginning. Now, what kind of policies are we making? I mean, are these people, and they're just milking us? Everybody coming here and milking us like we're nothing. And we're laughed at, made fun of. And they pretend that and they're going into real estate and everything, and they're buying out. They're raping our countries, all shapes and forms, because they're foreclosing on people's homes and stuff, and they're selling it at a lower cost than what it values so they can be able to purchase it, and then they're marketing it up. So everybody is out there trying to rape and pillage Cayman, and at the end of the day, it is only Caymanians that can suffer, because these other people got somewhere else to go. So call it what it is. It's corruption, and those that are in authority that knows what's going on, doing nothing about it, is just as worse as the people that are doing it. So the receiver just as bad as the thief.
Great.
All right, thank you very much for sharing that. And
I just want to jump in and say that the caller makes some
mm-hmm.
You can feel their pain. That's the reality for many. But there's a flip side to this. There are laws, there are contracts, and there are conditions that govern any sort of commercial engagement. I think it's important to recognize that, and everybody that runs a bank is in it for profit. It's a business. It isn't a charity. It isn't something that effectively there's a giveaway. Government gives away stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Private sector are about business and profits. I think what can happen is, and what should happen is, there needs to be real dialogue between the decision makers and the private sector. If there is no sort of success coming out of those discussions, there's a reason why you have an elected government. Laws are made and laws are amended whenever they need to. If you doubt that, during COVID, they were changing the laws. It felt like every week, every 2 weeks. If there is the political will, and if there's enough reasons and public incentive to do so, the government will respond. We've seen it. The COVID lockdown wasn't that long ago. Not being able to go to the beach. And I grew up thinking that when you're sick, the sea saves everything.
That makes sense.
I was blown away that you couldn't go to the beach, but you could buy liquor.
Mm.
And they changed the laws to make sure that you couldn't go to the beach. And I would only go to the beach for 5-10 minutes, duck my head, blow my nose, and just get going like everybody else, because that's what we were taught as children, right? So all I'm saying is, in business, the purpose of a business is different from the purpose of government. There's contracts, there's consequences, and there's conditions. But the government can,
mm-hmm.
and I would say this, the issues that are impacting people that the lady described, and I saw a video with Minister Bryant, that impacts multiple Caymanians, whether you support this government or you supported the last government. So if 19 MLAs can't come together to figure out who were elected by the people to work in the best interests of the people and of the country, none of them is worth your vote. Because this is the one time, just like COVID, people are coming out of COVID and the situation is rough. I'm not saying that you can demand anybody to stop a foreclosure if the laws are currently written the way that they are. But I do know if they care enough about their constituents, about their people, you have the ability to amend those laws in Parliament.
Okay. With that, we'll pause, take our news break, join the other callers right after. Please stay tuned.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool. Before, during and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Public Health reports 178 cases of COVID-19 for Monday and Tuesday, bringing the 7-day rolling average for Wednesday to 57. There are 965 estimated active cases of COVID-19 in the Cayman Islands. In international news, the Supreme Court on Thursday struck down a New York gun law enacted more than a century ago that places restrictions on carrying a concealed handgun outside the home, an opinion marking the widest expansion of gun rights in a decade. The opinion changes the framework that lower courts will use going forward as they analyze other gun restrictions, which could include the proposals currently before Congress if they eventually become a law. The 6-3 decision stated the requirement violates the constitutional right to bear arms. Omicron subvariants BA.4 and BA.5 appear to escape antibody responses among both people who had previous COVID-19 infection and those who have been fully vaccinated and boosted, according to new data from researchers at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center of Harvard Medical School. However, COVID-19 vaccination is still expected to provide substantial protection against severe disease, and vaccine makers are working on updated shots that might elicit a stronger immune response against the variants. And the European Union and Norway agreed on Thursday to further strengthen their cooperation in the energy field, providing the EU with additional gas supplies, Norway's oil and energy ministry said. A joint statement from the EU and Norway noted that Norway's oil and gas production for European energy security has increased further after Russia's unjustified and unprovoked war of aggression against Ukraine. According to the statement, Norway currently delivers approximately 1/4 of EU countries' gas consumption and is producing gas at very high capacity. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
We wanna go and dally, Bagaya.
So you hear the joke about the goat that walk into the yard?
No, tell me now.
I hear it became brunch at Backyard.
The Sunday Fun Day Caribbean Brunch at Backyard. Non-stop food, only $45 for adults and $20 for children under 12. With them store prices, only an ox would miss this because oxtail on the menu too, along with eggs, bacon, callaloo, jerk chicken and more. Oh, and the curry goat.
Backyard, non-stop food, Sunday Fun Day Caribbean Brunch. Book your table now, 746-4603.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Ransomware, DDoS, malware, phishing. If you don't know what those mean, you're not alone. But if you aren't protected against those cybersecurity attacks, then your business is at risk. Don't leave your data or your business vulnerable. Get Digicel Business Protect. Simpler, smarter cybersecurity. Visit our website, www.digicelbusiness.com, to request a callback or call us now on 623-2499.
Aunt Claire, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, how you?
Good. I try and figure out where Lee Classic moved to.
I was just there last week.
Really? I hear she had an anniversary sale.
She got a shoe for every foot.
I know. That's why I try and get down there.
You know where she located? Let me tell you. She located at at Strand Shopping Complex under Westway Road.
Yeah, I believe I know where that is. Girl, I gotta go. I get me a good pair of shoes.
That's right. Le Classique is now located in the Strand Shopping Complex and is celebrating 39 years. 20, 39, 50% off all shoes. Shoes as low as $15, $20, even $10. That's right, K-Man. Don't miss this one. Sale on now through Saturday, June 25th. Be there.
Subway is giving you flavor around the clock with the new Chicken Squad sandwich options. Try the classic chicken and bacon ranch, the sweet and savory barbecue chicken, or the chicken cordon bleu. 3 new appetizing and delicious sub options that you can also make into a wrap. The Chicken Squad is available at Subway for only a limited time. Subway, giving you something to cluck about.
Radio Cayman News.
Lawmakers pass a private member's motion designed to provide increased assistance to Caymanian land and home buyers.
Cayman is facing a cost of living crisis. Prices are going up on just about everything we buy.
Since taking office, we have assisted 246 families in stamp duty already being waived.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for listening and joining and sharing your thoughts as we speak with Johan Moxon. We do have, Mr. Moxon, a couple of calls. Hey, good afternoon, welcome, thank you for calling.
Afternoon, Dean and John.
Good afternoon, how are you today?
Not bad, it's been a long time we called you all.
Well, it's good to hear from you, man, thank you.
I'm listening to the show, and you all started with this, John was talking about having racial problems and blah, blah, blah. I would like to introduce you all to something you may not know. I don't know, I studied 12 tribes, I read the Bible, and I know what's going on, But the thing is about the racial issue to me, that doesn't bother me if you understand, because I don't care where you come from, what color you are, what you look like. We come from the 12 tribes of Israel, Jacob, Genesis 49. That's basically it. And we all carry the same function, rule the same part of the body. It depends on what month you're born. So that's an issue that I always teach to people to keep away from this racial problem. You understand? Because I have no racial problems. I grew up in Cayman. I have no racial problems. I went to school. I was very mixed, and I had no trouble with no one. You understand? So that is one thing I like to tell people about all the time. That's something to teach people, because that way you understand one another. You know? Because I got friends of all nationalities, class and creed and color. You understand? So I don't have any problem with that at all.
All right.
But, you have to know these things. And
we are one.
We are one. And another problem we do have is two-party government system. We always talk about united, we stand divided before, but we've been divided for years. Two-party system is you can't run a kingdom with two parties. That can't happen, because one is fighting against the other. And that was always go on. And this thing about being paid in Cayman, or living in Cayman, the first thing is we have a minimum wage at $6 an hour. In 1972 or 3, I was working for $5 an hour as a plumbing helper and as a gas station attendant. So I don't know where to come up with a $6 an hour business. That's where the problem with work permits is. And about Cayman being lazy. Cayman not lazy. Caymaners will work their backside off, but they want to be paid. And they work well. That's basically it. I could say all day and preach to you all, but that's a few things I want to get into today.
Well, thank you for sharing those.
It's a chance to talk.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right. Let's take another call. Welcome, good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon, Johan. How are you guys there?
Very well. How are you?
Mr. Billy, is that you?
Yes, that is me. See, this has been absolutely enthralling, from the very beginning and so on. I mean, I have followed you, Johan, and through the elections and through other talk, including the defunct cross talk and so on. But what you are saying, you are saying the things that people in Cayman are saying. I listen to the talk shows. I participate in everything in the groups. That's what people are saying. What I have decided personally is that in Cayman, elections are not changing anything. Elections are changing those who have now the power to get contracts or to be denied contracts, and that changes. But otherwise, elections are not changing anything because, you see, every government has done something good here and there, but they have not dealt with the fundamentals. And what are the fundamentals? One of them you've talked about is about jobs. Under the Public Service Management Law right now, a Caymanian only can be given preference to get a job if their qualifications are roughly the same as those of a foreigner. Only then can a Caymanian get preference. That is wrong. Nobody does like that. Does that anywhere. If a Caymanian, for example, has 10 years experience and the job requires 5 years experience or even 10, they should be given the job even if there's a person from the UK with 25 years experience. They have to amend that law so that they can give Caymanians real preference. There's also section, I think it's Regulation 6 of the Immigration Law, which makes it optional to support, to give a succession plan. It should not be optional. It should not say may, it should say shall. And to me, unless the government can amend sections such as those, they shouldn't go out and complain to people and say, well, Caymanians are being victimized. You have the power of the pen. You can do this. And it can be done in one day. And then what happens is that you see people like me who are not Caymanian, when we have spoken out and said, well, I think the Caymanians here have got a point. We have all been victimized. That's how I left the government. Because I told my boss there to say, I want to train this Caymanian how to write legislation. I'm an internationally known person in writing legislation. I teach even to this day Canadian lawyers how to write legislation, but I was told in Cayman, no, you are not good enough to train anybody. Okay? And so that's the way it is. The victimization is against Caymanians and anybody who supports Caymanians. The Attorney General, talk about the rule of law. The Attorney General was found in the Public Accounts Committee. He was found to have been giving jobs to lawyers outside government without following tender procedures. It came out publicly. But what happened to him? Nothing. They just said, well, you see, this is not good, and ABC, and that was the end of it. How do you say that that is accountability? There is a judge right now. If you go to the judicial website, you'll find it. It's all there. Mr. Justice Ian Kawali. I have sued him. Why? Because he lied about, he said, I never gave him a chance so that he could arrange a Zoom hearing. I have 12 emails which show he's lying. But neither the governor, the AG, the Chief Justice, or anybody can do anything. In the end, I have to go before the Court of Appeal. But let me close on this. I come from Africa, right? This declaration of interest, which is done in Cayman, in the country I come from, once you do that declaration, it's made public so that we know who the richest person in the country is, we know who the poorest politicians are. But at the same time, although it hadn't done much to end corruption, but that's the level of accountability that you need. And then look at the judiciary now. You find you have to complain to the Chief Justice if you are complaining against a judge. Nowhere is it done that way. There has to be a separate body to do that. Even where I come from in Africa, that's the way it is. There's a separate body that has to do that. So in Cayman, therefore, what is the solution? The solution, you need more people action. Forget about the politicians. They will never change. You need more action like the CPR. What you guys did with CPR was precedent setting. What some people did to go and camp outside the houses of some MPs who wanted to change camp, that's the sort of people action that is needed. There is need for more people action because just talking to these people doesn't change. I think it's good to highlight things, but there is need to understand that there is more street people action to force these people, both in government and in the opposition, to do that which the people want. I thank you for the time. I'll continue listening. Thank you.
All the best, sir. Take care.
All right, thank you very much for sharing. Can we share this other message received? And let me read it verbatim for us. It's in reference to Minister Bryan's, I guess will be social media posting yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it today at some point.
Okay, all right. So says the minister was crying yesterday. Big joke. Do you know for the past 3+ months that that lady had been reaching out to these PAC guys, some of the mean ones, and no one did anything. Now the bank did what they have to do by the old, outdated laws, which still on the books. Says the DP, I presume that would be the Deputy Premier, and many others from that group campaign on foreclosures by these banks, saying it would be the first thing they would address. How far in since they've been and in power? Tell me one thing that any of them did. So it is a shame that the minister had to put on a real Hollywood act on this matter yesterday.
What was that, horrible or Hollywood?
Hollywood, sorry.
Oh, Jesus, Lord.
I would like to know for what reason. When they fight for the people's vote to give them power, for what reason? Seems just to put on a Hollywood act. Says we need to try and remember this something happened. As I read this, I'm trying to gauge. It's still current in people's minds, right? But that's the perspective of one of our listeners.
Again, just for the record, I'm not. I was appointed to a government board, two, but that doesn't make me a government lackey or spokesperson in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I know Minister Bryant to be a emotional person. I know him well enough to know that everything weighs heavy on him.
He made an impassioned plea that was very emotive.
No, but it was consistently who he is.
Yeah.
For some people, it will be too much. For some people, they will assume that it was inappropriate or fake. That's their perspective. It isn't for me to say that they're wrong. But the way that I've seen him operate politically, what I saw in that video is consistently who the minister is. With regards to the Deputy Premier, he'll have an opportunity to defend himself. Ultimately, all 19 MLAs owe it to their constituents that if they have a problem and if they are so concerned about the plight of Caymanians losing their homes and suffering from foreclosures, you can't just care during a campaign. All 19 of them are morally, ethically, and I think politically obliged to address that issue as a priority, because when they were on the campaign trail, the only thing they didn't promise you was the blood of Christ. So now that you're in a position where you are in power, if you can't be united to address, amend, or construct policies that will help people who are suffering and in the dire situations, then you're not deserving of your job. And I would hope that the people remember who stepped up and who didn't at this time, because during a campaign, people tell you anything. What I've learned is during a campaign, they'll tell you anything. And because some of them are fortunate enough to have some significant financial backers, they will buy support. They will buy your vote. But when you're losing your house, did they show up with any money to help you stave off the banks? If you can buy somebody's vote during an election, as a voter, you should have that expectation of them all the time.
Yeah.
Because losing your home has to be one of the most catastrophic things possible, because here's the consequence of that. You're probably not going to be able to get a loan for another home.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're on that cycle. So I would hope that they're conscientious and concerned enough to be committed to a collective, unified action that addresses the sort of inadequate laws that take advantage or that harm people. But at the same time, changing the laws and amending laws is one thing. But if you are struggling and you're at in a dire situation, I think you owe it to yourselves to have an honest conversation with the bank and get the professional sort of help along the way. But it's more than one sort of thing that needs to be done. But I would just go back to the original message of, if they cared enough to talk about it, and all 19 of them did, every single body swore that they were here to defend you, to protect Cayman, and to help you, this is the time for them to prove it.
So as we look at Cayman now on the world stage, we know that there are many who had shared a few years ago, being mindful of what's coming in the pipeline, potential recession, prices. Very few probably would have predicted what we're experiencing now in terms of cost.
But I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree. Here's what we got going for us.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Cayman in comparison to the rest of the region, we have this magical thing called the financial services industry.
Mm-hmm.
The financial services industry is the equivalent of Cayman's oil. It represents more than 70% of the GDP and significant revenue for the government. Everybody talks about tourism. Everybody talks about this. When you look at the data, you'll understand the revenue that we derive from tourism.
Mm-hmm.
You'll understand the revenue that we derive from development. But my question to you is, why are we granting concessions and giving away current and future revenue during a time when your economy is hot and you're booming?
Mm-hmm.
For me, there needs to be investigations into those decisions. There is no development agreement that should be private. Any minister that commits to negotiating and agreeing a development agreement, which basically is public funds, current and future public funds, you need to be able to justify that. There needs to be an Auditor General's investigation into that. And I'm talking over the last 4 years, over the last 8 years, 12 years, 15 years. But I say all that to say this. We had to know coming out of COVID there was going to be some sort of impact to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
These things have been projected. If you read and you understand, you knew that the world couldn't continue operating like this. A recession was coming. You go back as 3 years, you can find the articles there and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But what we got going for us is that financial services carries everything, pays all the bills. There's a reason why civil servants were not having to take a drop in salary or drop in benefits and so on and so forth, because the revenue was there. But instead of committing ourselves to protecting, supporting, and growing industry, we basically assume that financial services has to be here. So you give concessions to development, you give concessions to everybody else that isn't really hiring anybody or Caymanians en masse. They get the benefits. What happens now if you've got senior people in financial services industry going, well, I want the same $300 million concession that you gave company A, B, C, and D, because I know we generate X, Y, and Z. And if you look at the cumulative number over the years, we have paid our way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a possibility. But there's a disconnect and there's an arrogance to what happens with the people that run the country, because they assume you have to be here. In this global economy we have, COVID taught us you can work from home. You can work at your desk. You can work at your kitchen counter. You don't have to rent 20,000 square feet of office space to house your staff. There are some companies that are still operating remotely. We don't appreciate and understand the significant impact and how blessed the Cayman Islands is to have financial services as our primary pillar and the thing that supports what we got going on. I say all that to say this. If that is where we are, if that's what we're doing, I'm not saying that you prostitute yourself to industry, but you have to do more to rally, protect, and grow industry, because that's where jobs are. That's where opportunities, and I'm not just talking professional grade jobs, I'm talking across the spectrum. And when you look at the knock-on effect from that, you know, that's what counts. We are where we are now, and we had to know that we were going to have these situations. What I find comical, and I have a world of respect for the Honourable Roy McTaggart. He's a good man. I have a world of respect for him. What I don't understand is the PPM ran the country for 8 years. You didn't see this coming? All of a sudden you now have suggestions? All of a sudden you have ideas on the way to move forward? Don't you think you could have started talking and thinking about that stuff over the last 3, 4, 8 years, whatever the number is? And they'll say that it's because of the sound decisions and the economic and the financial stability, that came from financial services. There's a reason why nobody who gets a government check took a drop in pay when you look at the fact that financial services provided that, the bulk of that money.
Okay. Let me ask you if I can. You're in the industry. We understand the importance of the financial services sector.
No, the government doesn't.
Okay.
Well, you might, but don't be flippant about it, because at the end of the day, you give away everybody else, but you don't look after the thing that makes you successful.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, I can say to you, that has to stop.
Right. But the Deputy Premier and he serves as Minister of Finance, Mr. Saunders, publicly said the financial services sector, we need to focus on tourism.
That's politics. If Chris was in this, if the Deputy Premier was in this room, I'd say the same thing. That was politics. My opinion is, it was reckless and it was irresponsible when you look at the facts.
But does that signal potentially to the financial services sector, hey, should we be rethinking? I mean, what is it transpiring in the government's mind? You said reckless, right? I've had a few people from the industry share some comments, by the way, and it made a bit of them uncomfortable, a little anxious.
Some of them aren't comfortable to use the sort of adjectives that I use, but that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick to that because I don't know how to do anything else. So you can tell me that tourism is the thing that we need to build our house on, but who did you have to offer stipends to?
Right. But if the tourism minister makes comments to champion the tourism sector, if the works minister makes comments to champion the work sector, if the housing minister makes comments to champion the housing sector, would not the finance minister?
Only Minister Saunders knows why he said what he said. I see it as politics, and politicians say a lot of things that is politic.
All right.
But that's what it is.
Johan, let me as we get to the closing minutes of our discussion today, let me read this last comment that I came in. It says, "So good afternoon. Really enjoying the conversation with Johan today. I wish he had gotten in and hope he tries again." I don't see from your comments anything political. I'm trying to be objective. I appreciate your tenacity, the accuracy of your comments, and your forthrightness with respect to your opinion.
Sterling, you know me. We have conversations every 3 months, 6 months when we catch up, and I've always spoken like this. This is who I am. I'm not trying to win favor. I'm not trying to gain support. I call it as it is. I didn't win. I got 400 votes, and I thank every single person that voted for me. That's a great start. Their confidence and trust in me means a lot to me. If we were applying for a job, you look at my opponent, you look at me, I'm supposed to win that job. I'm supposed to get that job just based on what I stand for. But politics is a completely different animal. You better have money, you better have an army, and more importantly, you got to get into the nook and crannies and in the diggings of your community, and you got to understand there's a Cayman that is developed that is first generation Caymanian, first generation Honduranian, or multiple generation Caymanian Honduranian, multi-generational Caymanian Jamaican, and they are loyal to what they know. And come politics time, it's not about the solutions that you have. It's about where you go for me.
No.
Where you go for me now. And here's how politics works in every district. I put some money on you now. I come back 3 weeks later and I put money on you then. And you see, before we get to election day, 2 days, a day before, you're getting another hit there. I never bought one vote. I don't believe in buying votes. The person that buys a vote will sell you out and sell out the country. But there are businesses and there are entities that will pump significant amount of money into politicians and into candidates because they will get a return on investment and ROI for that financial report. And then you will see why policies are pursued the way that they are. What people say when they're running versus what they do when they're elected, sometimes it's night and day because I owe that person a favor or that person owes me. Nobody owns Johan Moxham. I answer to the boss at home and I answer to the boys. That's who I answer to.
You're a smart fellow.
But, like the politics, My campaign was about truth. My campaign was run exactly how I wanted it to be run. I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to educate. I'm going to enlighten. And my hope is that the country wants that type of representation and that type of leadership. And unfortunately in Georgetown North, they weren't ready for it. But that's their right. And I can't blame anybody for that. But I know this. I will never buy your vote on the hope that you vote for me. But anybody that buys votes, just know that's not their money. That's not their money at all. I ran my campaign. I did how I did. It is what it is. And there's an election in 3 years from now. Am I focused on that election? No. I'm focused on protecting the thing that provides for me and my family. That's Cayman.
Safe, secure, stable Cayman.
Basically.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to have all the money in the world and to have millions if you live in burglar bars and gated communities. Bahamas, you go to the Bahamas, beautiful country, some good people, great people. If you're not in your gated community, watch yourself. It goes downhill and it gets ugly pretty quickly. That is not what I want for Cayman. I don't want to live behind burglar bars. I don't want to live behind gates. I'm going to give you an example. Where we live, there is a gate. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I did not approve it. I did not vote for it. Because we might have a gate, but you could go on the next road, walk through a grass piece, come and shoot everybody in where we live, go back through the grass piece, jump in your car and drive out. A gate is about the perception of safety. It doesn't make you safe. I don't want to get to the stage where I got to buy a gun to protect my loved ones and my property. But if we don't fix and address the things in Cayman happening now, that's going to happen. I'm just going to close off by saying this. When government and government policy is geared towards protecting everybody else except its own people, there's a problem. Let me give you the current example. If Cuban nationals are here at a detention center and they're burning down the place and they're rioting and they're doing whatever, we need to have the courage of conviction and say, hey, obviously Cayman isn't working for you, so we're going to help you go back to Havana, or we're going to help you go wherever you need to go. But you can't stay here and spend millions of dollars on housing, feeding, securing foreign nationals who don't appreciate it, who are burning down the place, who then claim they want to become a part of your society and they're seeking asylum. We have our own domestic problems and our own troublemakers and our own criminals. We do not need to be importing any of that. We need to do a better job of verifying who comes into Cayman. We need to do a better job of understanding who is applying for PR, and we need to do a better job of making it more difficult for people to get permanent residency and Caymanian status. It needs to be earned by your integration with the people and society and not based on your wallet. Because there are many people that come here, smile in your face, and they hate you and hate what we represent. And they would rather live in a Cayman without us. I will never be quiet about that. You came and you found me and us here. Show us that respect and it will be reciprocated. But the minute you demonstrate that you think you're too bright, you need to go back because there's a plane waiting for you and nobody begged you to come. Being an economic migrant means you have choices. Caymanians really don't. This is home. So you either get along and show that respect or make your money, do what you need to do. Go back to where you feel comfortable. But whilst you're here, let's live as one. Let's have that mutual respect. Let's have our children do what they do at school now. They play. They're children in this country that don't understand anything about classism, racism, discrimination. They're just kids. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we created and helped shape a community whereby every single Caymanian mattered? And it didn't matter what color you were, where you lived, how much money you have, or how much money your parents had. We just agreed to live by a particular standard of consistent application of laws. Everyone held accountable to the same standard. Transparency, so you know what you're dealing with. And that the rule of law was based on good governance across the board. That's what I want, and that's what I think sensible people want, and hopefully we'll get there together.
Johan, thank you very much for the candid conversation. Thanks for taking time to share with us. And for those who listen, call, or share thoughts, thank you very much for your attention and participation. Tomorrow, please join Mr. Art for the record in the morning. Our Talk Today show right after the midday news. We want to invite you. We're going to have a quick conversation with our friends from Hope for Today. And then former parliamentarian and farm extraordinaire Mr. Franklin Smith is expected to be your guest. Hopefully, he's still able to join us. So tomorrow, that's the invitation. Between now and then, recognize and appreciate that we all are giving much, and we all have, much to contribute. As I think I've heard from Johan, let's show a little more love, respect, and consideration to each other. And we'll find that through that, we'll get further, we'll enjoy it, and we'll have that safe, secure, stable society that we seek. Until tomorrow, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
"46 years.
3 beloved isles.
1 beloved station, Radio Cayman. The voice,
The heart.
the soul